Alright, this is part 3. So, when he was blowing me up on my phone, I finally answered. I said, what is your deal? He's like, what do you mean? I said, you should have been honest with me from day one. You should have told me that you had a girlfriend instead of just leading me along and acting like you wanted me and wanted to be with me and all this shit. And he was like, I know, I'm sorry, I should have been honest with you, I do apologize, all this and all that. He's like, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me and everything else. I said, well, it's gonna probably take some time. And he's like, well, can you, give me a chance to actually, be with you, because you have something special about you. And I'm like, at that time, I was very immature, very wild, very everything in a book. And I was like, you know what? I will give it time on that and everything else. So we finally got to talking that night, and he's like, you're very, you're a different girl. You're not like everybody else I've been with. You're very sweet. You're very loving. You're very kind, caring, and generous. And I'm like, okay. I said, what are you getting at? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, you're being too sweet. And he's like, what? I'm not allowed to be? I was like, I didn't say that you couldn't. And he was like, you're very unique. You're very special to me. And you're very, just everything I want. And I'm like, you know what? Fine. I will give you a shot. I will see where it goes. But I said, you got to give me time. And so he was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to, be an ass about it. So the next couple of days, we were talking and texting. So that Monday, when we went back to school, he had come over to me and he was like, hey, how are you doing? I was like, I'm doing good. And he's like, you look, very adorable. I was like, thank you, I guess. And he's like, no, I mean it. You look adorable. I was like, well, thanks. And he was like, you're this very, different girl. You're very sweet. You're very just adorable. And he was like, well, I got some good news to tell you. I was like, so what's up? And he's like, will you give me the chance after school today to come and pick you up? I was like, pick me up? He's like, yeah, I want you to come over at the house where I live at so we can hang out. Well, not knowing that he didn't have a vehicle, I'm like, how are we going to get there? And he's like, oh, we're going to walk. I was like, okay. And so I called my grandma and told her I was going to go over to Chris's house after school that day. Well, I was not too happy with that decision because I had to walk. And by the time we got there, the house that his parents had at that time was a gigantic house. Like, his bedroom was the downstairs in the basement in the back room. And when we had got there, we were out on the back porch. We were talking, and he's like, I like you, right? I was like, yeah, what about it? And he's like, I want to be with you. I want us to date, get into a full, relationship, and this and this and that. I was like, I'll think about it. And the next thing I know, we decided to make it interesting. So we decided to play a game of strip daggone pool. And I was like talking shit, I'm like, I can kick your ass at pool, this, that, blah, blah, blah. While not knowing something else he had on his mind. And he was like, we started getting a little intimate. Like, things started coming off. Just all kinds of shit. Well, the next thing I know, we lead into the bedroom and he closes the door, and I'm like looking at him, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, what? I came in here because I wanted to have some alone time with you. I'm like, okay. And he's like, it's not what you think. I was like, okay. And he's like, the reason why I brought you in here is because there's something I want to talk to you about. I was like, okay, so what's up? And he was like, I know that and I want to know, when you feel like the time's right, are you going to let me be your first? I was like, I was not aware that this conversation was even going to happen. He's like, well, your friends put me with you and everything, and everybody thinks we're this good, amazing couple and everything else. I was like, I don't know. I have to see where it goes. And he comes over to me and he's like, I want to be with you, and you know how I am basically about you. And he's like, I can't stand it when you're at school and other guys are around you. He's like, it drives me crazy. Like, he's like, I couldn't stand seeing any other daggone guys and all that basically being around you. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, can you give me some time to think about this? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna make you do something that you don't want to do. And I was like, what's bringing all this up? And he's like, I just think you're a very good girl. And he's like, you're respectable about yourself. You're very, different. You're very unique. And he's like, I love that about you. And I was like, wait a minute, did you just say the L word? And he goes, yeah, why? And he comes over to me and he goes, literally has me up against the bedroom wall. And he's like, I love you. I was like, what? I was like, are you serious? And he's like, I love you. I was like, boy, you need to stop joking. He's like, no, I'm being serious. He's like, I love you. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the girl that you found out about, he's like, I left her because I want to be with you. I'm like, whoa. I was like, this is a lot to basically take on. He was like, there's something about you and I. There's something, unique about us. And I'm like, okay. And he was like, I love you. He's like, let me rephrase myself. Do you love me? I was like, we just met. I was like, and he's like, look at me. I was like, what? He's like, do you love me? I was like, I love you too. And he's like, next thing I know, I'm up against the wall. He comes onto me. We're kissing. And halfway through, we start fooling around. His bedroom door comes flying open, and it's his brother, Alex. Alex is the most out of control at that time, out of control, misbehaving fucking teenager. And Alex comes in there, and he looks at him, and he's like, damn, your girl's ugly as a mud fence, and blah, 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 and this and that. And I'm like, I looked at Alex, I said, boy, shut the fuck up. I was like, you don't even know me. And I looked at him, I said, I thought you said that there wasn't anybody home. He's like, as far as I know, there wasn't. And so I call my grandparents. I walk up to the top of their driveway, and I walk around to the middle of the street where my grandma and papa was. And he looked at me and he's like, he was like, did you honestly mean it? I was like, mean what? He's like, did you honestly mean when you said that you love me? I was like, I wouldn't say it if I didn't actually mean it. And he's like, okay, I'm just asking. And the whole way home, my grandparents, they were asking a shitload of questions. Like, what happened? Did you guys, do the deed and all this shit. I was like, no, hell no. And my grandma knows at that time, I was very, very honest about that. And I told her, I was like, no, we did not. And something in my gut had told me not to say I love you to him, because when I did that, it was like, I think that summer or something when Facebook first actually started out. And so when I made my page for the first time on Facebook, he was on there and he saw my page and he was like, why am I not on there? I said, you are on there, duh. And he's like, you got yourself labeled as in a relationship, but it doesn't say with who. I said, yeah, it does, if you go on there and look. And so I started like adding everybody I know from like high school and all that shit. So I had happened to add one of my last exes, and weirdly enough, he knows all of my exes, weirdly enough. And the first picture I posted was my profile picture. And he had commented on it, and he was like, my adorable girl, you know, this, that. And so everybody from high school started going on everybody's, you know, individual pages. And, you know, at that time, I was posting like a shitload of pictures, a shitload of selfies and all that shit. And as time progressed, we started hanging out more together at school. We started spending more time with each other at school. We started spending more time with each other at each other's own houses. And things started progressing between me and him. And things was good in the beginning. Like, we were texting, we were calling each other, saying goodnight to each other, texting each other in the morning, and everything else. And about, I think it was like a couple months in, things started getting more serious with me and him. And what I mean by that is that we had mentioned to each other that we wanted to hopefully end up together. And so around that time, he had secretly, and this ain't no lie, he had secretly proposed to me, and he was like, I won't marry you until we actually graduate. And he was like, are you okay with that? I was like, yeah, I'm good with that. And he's like, as long as we stay with each other and everything goes good, you know, we'll end up with each other. And over that time, like during that time length, we started going out on dates. We started spending more time together. In the middle of that summer particularly, things became a little serious. And close to my birthday, he knew that I was about to be 18. And so he had brought the subject up again. And he's like, have you thought about what I asked you? I said, I've thought about it a little bit. And so he was like, well, what's your answer? And I was like, my answer is maybe. And he's like, okay. So I kind of noticed how when I told him that, he started becoming more possessive. And what I mean by that is that he was watching me with his friends, watching his buddies around me, watching other guys around me, becoming more controlling, more bossy, more just everything. Stay tuned for part 4.